Alec Hunter had never been one for surprises. His life had always been a well-structured, predictable routine. As a skilled diplomat for the Intergalactic Federation, his days were filled with meetings, treaties, and negotiations. His work was important, no doubt, but it lacked excitement. It was the kind of life where every moment was planned, and there was little room for the unexpected. It had been another routine mission on the neutral space station, Haven 9. The station floated in the middle of a distant sector, far from any planet of great significance. Its role was simple: maintain peace between the different factions of the galaxy. Alec had been sent to negotiate a trade agreement between the Federation and a coalition of smaller colonies. The deal was crucial, and everyone expected Alec to secure it with his usual expertise. He had spent the past few days in meetings, discussing tariffs and resources, ensuring everyone left the table with something to gain. As always, Alec was efficient, professional, and detached. But something about this particular station felt different, though Alec couldn't place why. It wasn't until the fourth day of his stay that the change happened. Alec was walking through the central promenade, a vast corridor lined with shops, eateries, and markets. His mind was occupied with the latest terms of the trade agreement, and he barely noticed the crowd around him. But then, something caught his eye. It wasn't a person, but a presence, a feeling that made him stop in his tracks. A woman standing near the edge of a terrace overlooking the vast expanse of space. She wasn't doing anything remarkable. She wasn't selling anything or talking to anyone. She simply stood there, gazing out into the cosmos as if she could see something no one else could. Alec's instincts told him to keep walking, to ignore this fleeting moment and continue with his work. But instead, he found himself moving toward her, almost as if drawn by an invisible force. As he got closer, he noticed her features, tall, with an elegance that seemed otherworldly. Her hair was long and silver, flowing down her back in smooth waves, catching the light from the station's artificial suns. Her skin had a soft, ethereal glow, almost translucent in the low light. Alec had seen many people throughout his travels, but there was something about her that stood out. She wasn't like anyone he had met before. She was too calm, too serene. As he approached, she turned to face him, and their eyes met. Her eyes were a deep violet, almost unnatural in their intensity, yet they held a warmth that immediately made Alec feel as if he had known her for much longer than a few seconds. "Can I help you?" she asked, her voice smooth and melodic. Alec was momentarily taken aback. He had expected her to be distant, perhaps aloof. Instead, she spoke to him as if they were old friends. I was just admiring the view," Alec said, realizing how awkward he sounded. He cleared his throat. "I'm Alec Hunter, diplomat for the Intergalactic Federation." "Ah, a diplomat," she mused. "I've met many of your kind, always busy, always rushing around." She smiled, a knowing smile that seemed to go beyond simple politeness. "But not today." Alec couldn't help but chuckle. "No, not today," he agreed, "but I suppose that's the nature of the job." She glanced back at the stars, her expression softening. "I've always found the stars to be the most honest things. They don't lie. They simply exist, shining bright no matter what." There was something in her words that struck Alec deeply, though he couldn't quite explain why. It wasn't just the beauty of the sentiment, it was how she said it with such certainty. As if she had seen things beyond what any human could comprehend. "You're not from around here, are you?" Alec asked, his curiosity growing. "I don't think I've seen you at any of the meetings." She turned back to him, her smile widening slightly. "No, I'm not from here. I'm just passing through, a visitor of sorts." Alec frowned. "A visitor, but this station isn't exactly a tourist destination." She gave a small laugh, a sound that seemed to resonate in the quiet of the promenade. "I suppose you could say I'm here on business of a different kind." Before Alec could ask what she meant, a strange sense of urgency filled the air. It wasn't something he could pinpoint, but it was there, like a subtle shift in the atmosphere. He looked around, but the station seemed just as bustling as before, with no signs of any immediate danger. Yet the woman's eyes flickered with a knowing look. She seemed to sense something too, something Alec couldn't understand. Her expression softened, and she took a step closer to him. "You're not here by accident, Alec," she said quietly. "Your future and mine are more intertwined than you can imagine." Alec took a step back, confusion setting in. "What do you mean? Who are you really?" But before she could respond, something strange happened. The moment felt as if it was suspended in time. Alec's mind raced with questions, but none of them found an answer. The woman didn't speak again. She simply reached into her pocket, pulled out a small, folded piece of paper, and handed it to him. "You'll understand soon enough," she said. "Read the letter, it will explain everything." Before Alec could ask any more questions, she turned and walked away, disappearing into the crowd as quickly as she had appeared. Alec stood frozen in place, staring at the letter in his hand. The paper felt heavier than it should, as if it held the weight of something far greater than mere words. He unfolded the letter, half expecting it to be filled with cryptic messages or riddles. Instead, there was only one simple sentence, written in elegant, flowing handwriting. "Will I see you again?" The question echoed in Alec's mind, a strange mixture of hope and confusion. The woman had vanished without a trace, leaving him with more questions than answers. Yet somehow, he felt that this was just the beginning of something much larger than anything he had ever faced. Alec stood there for what felt like an eternity, the letter still in his hand, as the world around him continued to move. The stars outside the station's windows gleamed as brightly as ever, but Alec couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to change, and he was going to be at the center of it. He didn't know it yet, but that smile, that letter, would be the start of a journey that would take him to places he had never dreamed possible. And soon, Alec Hunter would discover just how deep the mysteries of the universe could go. Alec Hunter had always been a man of reason. As a diplomat for the Intergalactic Federation, his life had been a series of calculated decisions, discussions, and treaties. He never allowed himself to be swayed by emotion or mystery. Everything had a logical explanation, and he took comfort in that certainty. But the letter that the woman had given him, the words, "Will I see you again?" written in elegant handwriting, haunted him in a way that no official document ever had. He couldn't stop thinking about her. Alara. That name, which he had learned only moments before she vanished, was now etched into his mind. He had no idea who she was or why she had spoken to him the way she did, but there was something about her that felt important. Something about her eyes, the way they seemed to look right through him, left him feeling both unsettled and drawn to her all at once. Alex spent the next few days in a haze, unable to concentrate on the diplomatic talks he was there to manage. The Federation's trade deal was important, but the woman's words and the letter in his hand consumed his thoughts. He went over the letter a dozen times, hoping to find something more hidden in the message. But it was always the same question, over and over again. "Will I see you again?" What did it mean? Why did she ask him that? It wasn't until the 5th day that Alec decided he had to find answers. He couldn't just let this feeling linger in the back of his mind. He had to know who she was, why she had approached him, and what this was all about. The Federation's work would still be there when he got back, but this was something different. He started his search at the station's central terminal. Haven 9 wasn't a massive station, but it was large enough that finding someone could be difficult. Alec had no idea where to begin. He didn't even know if Alara was still on the station. She had given no indication of her next move or destination, but there had to be something. She had to be somewhere. Alec walked through the halls of the station, the hum of ships docking and the murmur of conversation filling the air. People went about their business, none of them seeming to notice the quiet urgency in Alec's movements. He wasn't used to feeling so out of control. In his line of work, everything was planned. Every conversation, every negotiation was mapped out in advance. But now he was chasing after something intangible, something that defied all logic. He spent hours searching the station. He spoke to the station staff, the merchants, even the pilots who had docked their ships, but no one had seen her. It was as if she had vanished into thin air. Alec began to wonder if he had imagined the whole thing. Maybe she wasn't real. Maybe it was just the stress of the trade talks that had gotten to him. Just as he was about to give up, he found something. It was in a small, quiet corner of the station, tucked away from the main walkway. A small library, its shelves filled with books and data terminals. Alec had never been in this part of the station before. As he entered, a faint smell of old paper and polished wood filled the air. There was a librarian sitting at the desk, her face buried in a book, but she looked up as Alec approached. "I'm sorry, I don't think I've seen you here before," she said, a polite but distant smile on her face. Alec nodded, but his eyes scanned the room. It was quiet, peaceful even, in a way that felt different from the rest of the bustling station. And then out of the corner of his eye, he saw her. Alara. She was sitting in a chair by a large window that overlooked the endless expanse of space. Her back was to him, but Alec could see her silver hair flowing gently in the light. His heart skipped a beat. She was real. She was here. He walked over cautiously, not wanting to startle her. But as he approached, she turned as if she had known he was coming. Her violet eyes met his, and for a moment, neither of them spoke. Alec stood there, speechless. He had so many questions, but in her presence they all seemed to fade into the background. "I knew you would come," she said quietly, her voice still calm and serene. "You're a man of action after all." Alec blinked, unsure of what to say. I had to find you." "I don't understand. What is this all about? Who are you? Why did you give me that letter?" She smiled softly, standing up from the chair. "I didn't expect you to understand right away, but now that you're here, we can talk." They walked together to a small table where she sat and gestured for Alec to join her. He took a seat, still unsure of what was happening, but too intrigued to leave. Alara folded her hands on the table, her expression serious now. "I'm not from your universe, Alec," she said, her voice unwavering. "I come from a world far beyond this one. My people, we are on the brink of extinction." Alec frowned, trying to comprehend what she was saying. "What do you mean? I don't understand." Alara took a deep breath. "In my world, humanity, as you know it, doesn't exist. My people evolved differently, and we have discovered ways to travel between dimensions. We've been trying to reach your universe for years, hoping to find a way to survive. Your people, your human race, have something we need, something we can't survive without." Alex sat back in his chair, stunned. He had heard of interdimensional travel, of course, but it was still a theory. No one had ever proven it. But here she was, telling him that she was from another universe. The implications were staggering, but he couldn't deny the truth in her eyes. She wasn't lying. "What do you need from us?" Alec asked, his voice barely a whisper. "Our technology is fading," she explained. "We've reached a point where our systems are failing, our ability to reproduce is declining, and we can't escape the war that's threatening to tear our universe apart. We need something from your people, something in your genetic code. Only humans in your dimension hold the key to saving us." Alec felt a chill run down his spine. "You're saying we're the key to saving your entire race?" Alara nodded. "Yes, but it's not just about survival. There's more at stake than you can imagine. The war that's threatening my universe is spreading, and it's already starting to bleed into yours. If we don't act now, both of our universes could be destroyed." Alec's mind raced, trying to process everything. It all seemed so impossible, so far beyond anything he had ever dealt with. But one thing was clear. Alara was telling the truth, and humanity's future was now intertwined with hers. "You're not asking for help, are you?" Alec said slowly. "You're asking us to fight." Alara's gaze never wavered. "Yes, Alec, I'm asking you to fight for us, for both our worlds. The war is coming, whether we're ready or not, but we can stop it together." Alec looked at her, feeling the weight of her words. This wasn't just a diplomatic mission. This wasn't just a trade agreement. This was something far bigger. His mind flashed back to the letter she had given him, the question, "Will I see you again?" It wasn't just a question about her. It was a question about everything. Would they see each other again? Would they be able to stop the war? Alec didn't know, but one thing was certain. The fate of both their worlds now rested in his hands. "I'll help you," Alec said, his voice firm. "Tell me what to do." Alara's expression softened, a look of relief crossing her face. "Thank you, Alec. You don't know how much this means." Alec nodded, already thinking of the challenges ahead. He had no idea what they were about to face, but he knew one thing for sure. His life would never be the same again. And neither would hers. Alec sat in the small room aboard Alara's ship, his mind racing. The decision he had just made felt like it had been taken from him, but at the same time, he knew it was the right choice. There was no going back now. The path ahead would be long and dangerous, but it was one he would face alongside Alara. She had explained the situation in more detail. Her universe was dying, torn apart by an interdimensional war that had already begun to bleed into his own world. Alec had always been a man of reason, of logic. He wasn't one to be swept up in the unknown. But there was something about Alara, the way she spoke, the urgency in her eyes, that made him believe in her words. Their journey had started with a single question, one that she had asked him without warning. "Will I see you again?" Now Alec understood. It wasn't just about meeting her again, it was about the fate of both their worlds. Alara's world, once rich with technology and peace, had been crumbling under the weight of its own destruction. She had described the situation in terms Alec could grasp. A war between dimensions, an enemy force from a parallel universe that was bent on spreading chaos across all worlds. The war had already begun to affect the stability of their universes, and the only hope for survival lay in the hands of humanity. Alec was no soldier. He wasn't trained for battle. He had spent his life negotiating treaties, keeping the peace, but now he found himself in a different kind of fight, one that would determine the survival of not just one, but two worlds. His thoughts were interrupted by the soft hum of the ship's engines, a constant reminder that they were traveling into uncharted territory. Alara had assured him that they were heading to a place of refuge, a hidden colony of her people that had remained hidden from the enemy forces. It was their last hope, and it was there that Alec would meet with the leaders of Alara's world to discuss their next move. The ship was sleek and silent, its interior illuminated by soft blue lights. Everything about it felt advanced, far beyond anything Alec had ever seen. It was clear that Alara's people had achieved a level of technology that far outstripped his own, but their civilization was on the brink of collapse. Alec stood up from the chair and walked to the window, gazing out at the stars. The universe stretched out before him, vast and endless. He had always found comfort in the stars in their unchanging presence, but now they seemed distant and cold. The thought that one of those distant stars might not be there tomorrow, that entire galaxies could be destroyed, weighed heavily on his mind. "Do you ever stop thinking, Alec?" Alara's voice broke through his thoughts. He turned to see her standing in the doorway, her expression as calm as ever, but there was something deeper in her eyes now, something that spoke of the burdens she carried. Alec smiled faintly. "I've always been a thinker," he said, "but this is different. There's no blueprint for something like this, no manual." Alara stepped into the room, her presence as graceful as ever. "I know, but you're more than just a diplomat, Alec. You've been preparing for this your whole life. You just didn't know it." He looked at her, puzzled. "What do you mean?" She sat down beside him, her eyes softening. "You've spent your life keeping the peace, negotiating, building bridges. You've always been the one to find solutions, to bring people together. This war isn't just about firepower or strategy. It's about bringing people together, creating alliances, finding common ground. You've already done that. That's why I need you." Alex stared out at the stars again, feeling the weight of her words. He had always considered his job as a diplomat to be one of detail and routine. He negotiated trade deals and diplomatic relations, and while he was good at it, he never thought his skills would be needed in a fight like this. But now, as Alara had pointed out, this was the same kind of challenge, a different kind of diplomacy, but diplomacy nonetheless. "Are you sure I'm the right person for this?" Alec asked, his voice filled with uncertainty. "I've never led an army, never been in a real battle." Alara looked at him, her expression steady. "You're not leading an army, you're leading us. You're the one who can unite us, bring us together. That's what we need. It's not just about strength, Alec. It's about heart. It's about hope." Alec turned to face her, a mixture of doubt and determination in his eyes. "So, what's the plan?" "We meet with the leaders of my people," Alara said, her tone serious. "We need to unite the factions, to form a coalition strong enough to stand against the enemy. The enemy has already begun infiltrating our universe, causing chaos. But if we can bring our forces together, we have a chance. And what do you need from me? You are the diplomat. You're the one who can talk to them, convince them to put aside their differences and fight together. I can't do it alone. The leaders of my people are divided, Alec. Some believe we should fight back aggressively, others think we should try to negotiate. They need a leader who can bring them together, someone who understands both sides. That's where you come in." Alec took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her words. This was no longer a simple mission. It wasn't about securing trade deals or maintaining peace. This was about survival. The survival of two worlds, of civilizations that had never imagined they would have to fight for their existence. "What do you think will happen if we fail?" Alec asked quietly, not looking at her. Alara's gaze softened, and for the first time Alec saw a flicker of vulnerability in her eyes. "If we fail, both our worlds will fall, the war will spread, and nothing will be left." The gravity of the situation hit Alec like a tidal wave. The stakes were higher than he had ever imagined. He wasn't just negotiating for resources or treaties anymore. He was negotiating for the survival of everything he knew, everything he had ever cared about. "I'll do it," Alec said, his voice firm. I'll help you bring them together. We can't afford to fail. Alara's eyes brightened and a faint smile appeared on her face. Thank you, Alec. I knew I could count on you. Alec nodded. There was no turning back now. They were on a path that would lead them to a meeting that could change everything. It was time to face the leaders of Alara's people and convince them to join forces, to fight for their survival. But as he stood there, staring out at the stars once again, Alec knew that this wasn't just about winning a war. It was about something deeper. It was about finding hope in the darkest of times, about uniting people who had been divided for too long. And in that moment, Alec realized that perhaps this was his true calling, not just as a diplomat, but as a leader who could bring people together in the face of impossible odds. The journey ahead would be difficult. It would require all of his skills, all of his strength. But Alec was ready. He had no choice but to be ready, for if they failed, it would mean the end of everything. As the ship continued its journey through the vast expanse of space, Alec felt a sense of purpose he had never known before. The unknown lay ahead, but he knew one thing for certain: he would not face it alone. Alara was with him, and together they would fight for a future that seemed impossible. The war was coming, and it was up to them to stop it. But Alec wasn't afraid. He had always believed that peace could be achieved through understanding, through cooperation. Now it was time to prove that belief was true. The fate of both their worlds rested in their hands. And Alec was determined to make sure they both survived. Alec stood at the edge of the council chamber, his heart pounding in his chest. He had never imagined he would find himself in a place like this. The walls around him were made of smooth, translucent material, glowing faintly in the dim light. The room was large, designed for meetings of great importance, and filled with representatives of Alara's people. The air was thick with tension. This was the moment that could change everything. Alara had explained the importance of this meeting. It was no longer just about negotiating trade deals or securing alliances. It was about survival, about convincing the leaders of Alara's world to unite against the forces threatening their very existence. Alec had spent the past few days preparing for this moment, trying to find the right words, the right arguments. But nothing could have prepared him for the sheer weight of the situation. He turned to look at Alara, who stood beside him. Her calm demeanor was the same as always, but Alec could sense the unease beneath the surface. She, too, was feeling the pressure of this moment. This was her people's last hope. If this meeting failed, there would be no turning back. The leaders began to file into the chamber, their footsteps echoing on the smooth floor. Alec recognized some of them from his briefings. Each one was a representative of a faction that had long been divided. Some believed in aggression, in fighting back against the enemy with all their might. Others were more cautious, preferring to wait and see, hoping for a diplomatic solution. But there was no time left for diplomacy. The enemy was already on the move, and if they didn't act now, it would be too late. Alec took a deep breath and tried to steady himself. He was no military strategist, no general. But he had a different skill. He knew how to bring people together, how to find common ground even in the most difficult situations. He had spent his life as a diplomat, navigating complex relationships, forging alliances where none seemed possible. He would have to do that now, but on a much larger scale. The last of the leaders entered, and the doors closed behind them. The room was now filled with some of the most powerful individuals in Alara's world, each of them holding the fate of their civilization in their hands. They all turned to face Alec and Alara, and for a moment, there was a heavy silence. Finally, the elder of the council, a tall figure with sharp features and piercing blue eyes, spoke. "You bring this human to us," he said, his voice stern. "You claim that he can help us unite, but we are a divided people, Alara. How can we trust him?" "How can we trust anyone who is not one of us?" Alara stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. "I know that our people are divided, but we don't have the luxury of time. The enemy is coming, and if we do not unite, we will fall. Alec Hunter has experience. He has brought people together across galaxies. He has saved more than one world from destruction." Alec could feel the eyes of the council on him, their judgment heavy in the air. He swallowed and stepped forward, ready to speak. "I understand that you are all worried. I understand that you have doubts. But if we don't act now, everything you know, everything you've built will be lost. We are not here to take over. We are not here to force you to follow my lead. We are here to give you a choice, to fight together or to let your world be destroyed." A murmur rippled through the council members. Alec's words were blunt, but they were the truth. They had no more time to waste on formalities, on petty disagreements. The enemy was coming, and they had to be ready. One of the council members, a woman with dark hair and green eyes, stood up. "What makes you think we can trust him?" she asked, her tone sharp. "What guarantee do we have that he will not turn on us when it suits him?" Alec looked her in the eye. "I can't guarantee anything, but I can guarantee that if we don't work together, we won't survive. You've seen the signs. You've seen the destruction that has already begun. This is our last chance. The fate of your people, your world, rests in this room." The room was silent again, the weight of Alec's words sinking in. He could feel the tension building, the uncertainty in the air. But he knew that this was the moment. He had to make them see that they had no other choice. "We're not asking you to trust me blindly," Alec continued. "I'm asking you to trust the truth. The enemy is real, the threat is real, and if we don't unite, we will all fall. Your people are not the only ones at risk. My world is too. And if we don't act, we'll lose everything." A long moment passed. Alec could feel the eyes of the council members on him, weighing his words, considering his offer. The silence seemed to stretch on forever, each second adding to the pressure he felt building in his chest. Finally, the elder spoke again, his voice quieter now. "You speak of unity, but how can we unite when we have so much hatred between us? We've fought amongst ourselves for so long, Alec Hunter. What makes you think we can just forget all of that and fight together?" Alec didn't have an easy answer. He knew that the divisions between them ran deep, but he also knew that the enemy would not wait for them to resolve their differences. The war was coming, and if they didn't act now, it would be too late. "The enemy doesn't care about your divisions," Alec said. "They don't care about your old grudges or your petty disagreements. They only care about one thing, destroying everything in their path, and if you continue to fight among yourselves, you will lose. I can't promise you that everything will be easy. I can't promise you that there won't be sacrifices, but I can promise you that if you don't come together now, you will have nothing left to fight for." There was a long pause as the council members exchanged glances. Alec could see the doubt in their eyes, but he also saw something else, the faintest glimmer of hope. They knew deep down that he was right. They had no choice. The elder nodded slowly. "Perhaps you are right, Alec Hunter. Perhaps we have no other choice but to fight together. But we will not follow blindly. We will not trust anyone who has not proven themselves worthy." Alec felt a surge of relief. "That's all I'm asking. Let's fight together. Let's put aside our differences and face the enemy as one. We don't have to trust each other completely. But we do have to trust that our survival depends on this." Alara stepped forward, her voice steady. "This is our only chance. We can either continue to fight among ourselves and lose everything, or we can unite and fight for the future of our people. Alec Hunter has proven that he is willing to stand by us. Now it is up to you to decide whether or not you are willing to stand by him." The council members exchanged looks, their expressions a mixture of skepticism and resignation. Alec could feel the tension in the room, but there was something else now, something he hadn't felt before. It was a sense of determination, of unity beginning to form in the smallest of ways. Finally, the elder stood. "We will agree to join forces. But only if you prove to us that you can lead us. If you can unite us, we will follow." Alec nodded, grateful for the chance. "I will do everything I can to prove that I can lead you, but we don't have time. The enemy is already on the move. We have to act now." Alara placed her hand on Alec's shoulder, her gaze meeting his. For the first time since they had met, Alec saw a flicker of true hope in her eyes. They had taken the first step toward something bigger than they had ever imagined. The war was far from over, but for the first time, Alec felt like they had a real chance to win. The council had agreed to unite. They had put aside their differences, and now it was up to Alec and Alara to lead them into the fight. The future of both their worlds was uncertain, but for the first time, Alec believed they might just have a chance. As the meeting came to a close and the council members began to file out of the room, Alec looked out the window at the stars once more. The journey ahead would not be easy. There would be challenges, obstacles, and sacrifices, but he wasn't alone. Alara was with him, and together they had just taken the first step towards saving their worlds. It wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about hope. It was about fighting for a future, for the chance to see their worlds live on. And Alec knew deep down that they would fight with everything they had. They had no other choice.